Okay, welcome back. This will be the shortest section. There's one question. It's very easy. Okay, comparison of macroeconomic views. We talked about the fact that the classical economist uh, classical theory argues that the economy automatically self-corrects to full employment in the long run because of flexible prices and wages. Therefore, there is no need for fiscal policy. Classical economists believe in the quantity theory of money and that increases in the money supply cause inflation. Okay. We said that in the last slide, or last lecture, and I'm sorry it's taking so long. We're going to get this done fast. Keynesian theory argues that the economy does not automatically self-correct to full employment in the long run, and prices and wages are inflexible in a downward direction during a severe recession. Therefore, there is a need for fiscal policy. Keynesian economists believe that the velocity of money is unstable when we talk about the quantity of exchange, and that changes in the money supply affect interest rates and investment. Okay, so we can have fiscal policy or monetary policy to fix things. The Keynesians have typically preferred fiscal policy because they believe it is faster and more efficient. Okay, I guess they've never been to Washington, D.C. before. Now, here's the important part. We have something called the crowding out effect. Does too much government borrowing raise interest rates to such a high level that it reduces consumption and investment? If this is the case, then the increase in the aggregate demand curve, if it really existed from fiscal policy, is diminished or crowded out. So we'll increase government spending by borrowing. When we do that, we raise interest rates so high that people stop buying things with their credit cards or start paying off their credit cards instead of buying goods and services. So that reduces consumption. And businesses cut back on their investment spending because interest rates are so high that now projects that have previously appeared to be profitable are unprofitable. So the offset from CNI can match or exceed the gains in aggregate demand from raising government spending, which causes too much borrowing. Does that crowd out the rest of the economy? Now, the Keynesians say that the investment demand curve is rather steep or vertical. So crowding out effect is insignificant. So the Keynesians here are saying, for whatever reason, that that investment demand is highly inelastic, that large changes in the interest rate have almost no effect on the amount that businessmen will spend, which is to some degree sketchy. Okay. The monetarists, on the other hand, say that the investment demand curve is relatively flat or more horizontal. So the crowding out effect is significant and fiscal policy is ineffective. So the monetarists and the Keynesians aren't really arguing, are business cycles inherent in capitalism? They're both in agreement that they're inherent in capitalism. They're arguing about that. They aren't arguing, does the government need to come in and intervene to smooth out the excesses of capital? They both agree on that. Where they disagree is which method is more effective. Fiscal policy, which the Keynesians say is more effective, or monetary policy, which the monetarists say is more effective. And then the classical economists, if there were any, say that we don't need to intervene, that the economy will correct itself. It won't take that long. Get out of the way. Let it work on its own. Okay. Now, one of the problems I have with this graph is they're missing a big group called the Austrians. Okay. The Austrians have different things to say on these things. But you can see here that their views on the stability of the economy are different. Are prices and wages flexible? They have different opinions. So how come they can't prove this? Why can't they go out there and say they're either flexible or inflexible? No one's been able to ever come up with that answer and convince the other side. Is the velocity of money stable, unstable, or predictable? Is the cause of inflation excess money supply, which I would say that it is. It's price inflation, right? Excess aggregate demand. Here, the Keynesians turn the world up on its head. They say, no, it's not the banks, it's not the banking system that's the problem, it's you people. You people, especially businessmen, are irrational and you make bad decisions and you need big daddy government to come in and correct for your mistakes. Okay? And Friedman would agree to some degree with the classical economists in saying that there is excess money supply causes price inflation. Causes of unemployment, short run price and wage adjustment. Okay, short run price and wage adjustment, inadequate aggregate demand. So you can see here that Keynes differs from both groups. He says, no, it's spending. You don't have enough spending. You need more spending to increase aggregate demand, which is sort of a ridiculous statement because to say that spending generates real output has serious problems. Take, for example, if you want to buy a hat, right? Do you go to the store, spend the money first, and then the hat gets made? No. Businessmen have already made the hat and are waiting for you to come in and purchase it. So real output has been generated and it will in the end generate real spending when the hat is bought. Keynes flips that on his head. The effect of monetary policy. Um, the classicals say that it affects aggregate demand and prices. The monetarists somewhat agree, but they think that we should have a monetary policy because we need rising prices or to prevent prices from falling. Meanwhile, Keynes says that changes in interest rates change investment in real GDP. So the effect of monetary policy is only through its effect on spending, mainly by businesses and consumers. Lower interest rates will get them to spend more. Higher interest rates will have them cut back on C&I. And then finally, the effect of fiscal policy. The classicals say that it's not necessary. The monetarists don't rule it out, but they say that it's not effective because the government borrowing to finance it crowds out private investment and consumer spending, and you basically get a wash or maybe even a negative effect on spending. But they still agree that spending, to some degree, generates output. The Keynesians say that the spending multiplier changes aggregate demand, that fiscal policy does work and is the most preferred method here. Okay, additional graphs. Sorry, my text graphs didn't get included here. Here we have looks at money supply. If you look, here's the Great Depression. Right here's the financial collapse of 2008, and you can see that money supply was going up. M1 as measured by M1. Federal deficits as a percentage of GDP, go back to the Great Depression. You can see that deficits actually went down during the Great Depression here, but not by nearly as much as they did in 2008. Unemployment rate during the Great Depression, here it is during the crisis of 2008, the stock market, the housing bubble bust. Okay, and here's your last question. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I'm sorry this took so long. Bye-bye.